There is a quiet reason. Your anxiety never leaves, not because it is stronger than you, but because you have mistaken its nature. For a long time, many have believed that peace begins only after fear disappears. Yet the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen monk of the modern era, beloved throughout the world for turning ancient mindfulness into the plain language of the heart, gently point toward another truth. Imagine standing before an old wooden gate, pressing against it with all your strength. Your hands grow weary, your breath grows heavy, your heart begins to tremble with the effort. Only much later do you discover that the gate had opened inward all along. This is how suffering deceives us. We believe resistance is strength. We believe control creates freedom. We believe the harder we push, the sooner peace will finally arrive. Yet every act of rejection quietly feeds the very thing we wish to silence. His teaching does not ask you to fight your anxiety. It asks you to understand it, the way you would understand a child. Because the anxiety is not the enemy, the war against it is. And so a question begins to form, quiet enough to change everything that follows. If the gate was never locked, what have we truly been pushing against all this time? Thich Nhat Hanh often described suffering as a kind of energy. Fear is an energy. Anxiety is an energy. It rises inside you, the way a storm rises in the sky, gathering slowly before anyone notices its arrival. Most of us respond to this energy with only one tool we have ever been taught: willpower. We try to crush the storm with the sheer force of wanting it gone, as though a strong enough wish could hold back weather. But he taught something quieter than force. He said we must learn to generate a second kind of energy entirely. Not the energy of resistance, but the energy of mindfulness. This second energy does not fight the first. It does not silence it or shame it, or demand that it leave before it is ready. It simply embraces it, the way sunlight does not attack a closed flower, but rests upon it patiently until slowly it opens. This is why anxiety often grows louder, the harder we try to will it away. We are pressing against the same locked gate, using only the energy of force, when the gate was always meant to be met, gently from within. Only a second energy, gentle and unafraid, can meet the first without adding fuel to the fire. So if two energies live inside every storm you carry, which one have you been feeding without ever noticing? There is a deeper question the first energy cannot answer. Why does one fear grow into an overwhelming storm, while another barely stirs the surface at all? Thich Nhat Hanh taught that within each of us lies something like a vast hidden garden. He called it our store of consciousness. Within this garden live countless seeds. Seeds of fear, seeds of anger, seeds of peace, seeds of joy. Every seed is already present in the soil, long before it ever rises into view. What decides which seed grows tall is not the seed itself, but where our attention lingers. Whatever we water, grows. If a mind returns again and again to the same worry, turning it over, feeding it with attention, that seed alone will rise taller than all the rest. Not because the fear was destined to dominate, only because it was watered most. This is a quieter kind of responsibility. Not blame, but awareness. The garden was never asking to be weeded by force. It was only asking to be tended with more care toward what deserves to grow. So if the seeds of peace have always been present in that same soil, which ones have you been quietly watering without ever choosing to? Thich Nhat Hanh offered an image gentler than any weapon ever devised. He said, "When anxiety rises in you, treat it the way a mother treats her crying infant. The child does not cry to disturb the mother. It cries because something hurts, and it has no other language yet to say so. A loving mother does not argue with the tears. She does not demand that silence come first before she is willing to draw near. She simply lifts the child and holds it tenderly in her arms." He said plainly, "Your anxiety is your baby. You have to take care of it. Not by silencing it, but by returning to yourself, recognizing the suffering that is already there, and holding it without flinching away." This is the shift most people never make in a lifetime. They treat anxiety as an intruder to expel, rather than a frightened part of the self, crying out simply to be noticed. You cannot out-muscle a frightened child into silence. You can only hold it until it slowly remembers that it is safe, not conquered, not silenced, only at last no longer alone in the dark. Notice something quietly remarkable here. The mother doesn't need to know exactly why the child is crying before she picks it up. Her arms do not wait for an explanation. In the same way, you do not need to solve your anxiety before you are allowed to hold it gently. Understanding can come later. Tenderness comes first. And once a child stops crying alone in the dark, what does it begin to feel in the quiet that follows? At the very heart of his teaching lies a single word, interbeing. It says that nothing exists as a separate, solid, permanent thing. Not the mountain, not the river, not the self you have always called I. A wave rises and believes itself to be only a wave. It watches the waves ahead of it break upon the shore and trembles, believing its own end is coming for it too. But a wave was never only a wave. It was always water. Before it rose, it was water. After it falls, it remains water still. The rising and the falling were never its true nature, only its temporary, passing shape. This is why anxiety grips so tightly. When we forget who we truly are, we believe we are only the wave, this fragile shape, this fleeting mood, this passing fear. We forget the water beneath. The part of you that quietly notices the anxiety was never anxious itself. It only witnesses. And what only witnesses can never be destroyed by what it witnesses. This is not a comforting idea to simply believe. It is something to be quietly discovered each time a feeling arises and passes, and you remain. The wave rose, the wave fell, and still something in you was there before it rose and remained after it fell. That something was never the wave at all. So if you were never only the wave, rising and falling, then who has actually been trembling all this time? Thich Nhat Hanh taught that inside every adult, there quietly remains a much younger self. A 5-year-old child, he said, is fragile in a way most of us no longer remember. Easily wounded, easily frightened, easily left holding a pain far too large for such small hands to carry alone. He taught that this child doesn't vanish with age. It waits quietly, patiently, inside the one who grew up around it. And it is often this child who trembles first, long before the adult mind has found a reason to. This is why some anxiety feels older than the moment that seemed to trigger it, because in truth, it is. He taught that healing doesn't come from analyzing the old wound over and over. It comes from something far simpler, a quiet, inward acknowledgement that this younger self is still there and was never truly abandoned. Not a technique to follow, only a recognition, arriving gently, the way a hand might rest on a shoulder without a word. An anxiety unexplained by the present moment is often a child who was never fully held in the past. And if the trembling was never yours alone to carry, whose hand was it always quietly waiting for? Thich Nhat Hanh taught that suffering and happiness are inseparable from one another. Neither can exist without the other close behind it. He compared this to the growing of a lotus flower. A lotus does not grow in clean water, it grows in mud. Without mud, there can be no lotus at all. The very thing we wish to remove entirely from our lives, the anxiety, the discomfort, the endless struggle, is the same soil from which our deepest peace can rise. This does not mean anxiety should be welcomed for its own sake. It means the fantasy of a life with none of it was never a fantasy of peace to begin with. It is only a fantasy of a flower with no ground left to grow from. Understanding this quiets a second, deeper layer of anxious thought. Not only, why is this happening to me, but the quieter despair beneath it. Why can I not simply have a life free of this? Notice what shifts when the mud is no longer the enemy. The struggle itself becomes something other than punishment. It becomes material, raw, uncomfortable, unwanted material, out of which something quietly beautiful is still being formed. You were never meant to have the lotus without first having the mud beneath it. So if the mud was never the obstacle to your peace, what then were you actually hoping to be free of? There is one final truth, quiet enough to be missed entirely. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that the past is no longer here, and the future has not yet arrived to meet us. There is only one moment in which life is truly available. The present moment. Anxiety cannot exist inside this moment, not truly. Anxiety requires a future, a tomorrow to fear, a moment that has not yet arrived. In this breath, right now, there is no anxiety. There is only breath. This is why he placed such quiet weight on something most people never think to notice at all. Simply knowing that a breath is happening without needing to change it or perfect it or escape it. He taught that this quiet knowing is itself a doorway, not a technique to master, not a trick to silence the mind, but a return to the only place where suffering has no ground to stand on. The present moment does not ask you to fix your life. It only asks you to arrive fully as you are. And in arriving, you discover what he spent his whole life teaching. The anxiety was never chasing you. You were only forgetting where you had already been standing. The gate, it turns out, was open all along. At Plum Village, the community he founded, a single sound is used to interrupt everything. The bell. Whenever it rings, no matter the hour, no matter what is being said or done, everyone stops, not to perform silence, to actually return. He taught that this bell is not a call to religious ritual. It is a call back to the body, to the only place where the anxious mind has no power. He once described listening to its sound and feeling his own sorrow begin to dissolve, his mind grow calm, a small smile arriving on its own. In daily life, most of us have no bell, but the invitation remains available in every moment. A phone ringing, a knock at the door, even a sudden wave of anxiety itself. Any of these can become the bell, not something to silence quickly, something to let interrupt you, back into this breath, this body, this moment. The sound itself does not remove the storm, It simply reminds the one standing in the storm that they are still standing on solid ground. And if a single sound could interrupt an entire lifetime of running, what might it feel like to finally let yourself be stopped? The wave that fears its own ending has simply forgotten that it was always water. The child who cries inside you was never asking to be silenced, only to be held. The mud you wished away was the very ground your lotus needed to rise from. Two energies live inside every storm you have ever carried. One wants to fight. The other only wants to stay and hold what is already there without asking it to change. Somewhere in the garden beneath it all, a quieter seed has been waiting the whole time for someone to finally water it instead. The gate you spent a lifetime pushing against was never locked. It was only waiting for the pressure to soften, long enough for you to feel it quietly give way. And somewhere, quietly, a bell is always ringing, waiting only for you to notice it. Nothing you have ever felt was strong enough to break what you truly are. Perhaps the anxiety was never the enemy to defeat. Perhaps it was only the knock of something asking quietly to be let in.